Good morning. My name is Reynolds, and today we are going to be learning about the Fourth, Fifth, Sixth, and Eighth Amendments and their importance in today's society. So let's get started with the Fourth Amendment. The Fourth Amendment protects against unreasonable searches and seizures, and what this means is that someone cannot be kept in custody without proper due process of the law, despite the fact that he or she committed the offense. So basically what this is saying is that a search warrant is needed in most searches. There are some exceptions to this, but that also depends on the situation, who and what is being searched. I actually remember a time where I was on duty, and as I was driving down the street, I witnessed what I thought to be a drug deal. And I witnessed the dealer walk back into his house. And so I walked up, knocked on his door, and asked if I could look around. He denied, but I had the probable cause because I witnessed the drug deal. So I called in, got a search warrant, and after obtaining that warrant, we searched the house, and over a pound of marijuana was found, and he was arrested. So now moving on to the Fifth Amendment. The Fifth Amendment includes grand jury indictment, self-incrimination, and double jeopardy. So starting with the grand jury indictment clause. This clause states that the grand juries do not determine guilt or innocence. Instead, they determine whether probable cause exists to believe that the accused has committed a crime, and then they return with an indictment. So this is what you see when the jury leaves the courtroom and they speak amongst themselves and of what each individual juror thinks, either guilty or innocent, and then they return and give their final thought and whether they're guilty or innocent in the crime that they've been charged with. With the self-incrimination clause, this clause permits an individual to refuse or disclose any information that could be used against him or her in a criminal prosecution. So this is pretty blunt and straightforward, but basically in a nutshell, it's protecting the accused party from potentially being forced to give information that could lead to his or her prosecution. Now moving on to the double jeopardy clause. This states that the state and federal government cannot re-prosecute for the same offense. So an example of this would be like a person being charged with something on a state level could not be charged with the same thing on a federal level and be given the same sentence. So for the Sixth Amendment, the Sixth Amendment covers the right to a jury trial, an impartial jury, confronting witnesses, bringing witnesses to your own defense, and assistance of counsel. So starting with the right to a jury trial. This explains that the defendant has the right to present his or her case to a trial of his or her peers. In doing that, it gives the defendant a chance to plead their case and to let the jury make their decision based on innocence or guilt, based on the information given. An impartial jury means that the defendant has the right to a jury basically of evenly chose men and women of all races. There's a lot of cases in the news today where you hear an African-American man is on trial and he's not happy with the jury that's been chosen. There might be too many white men, too many white women. That seems to be the most common one, and there's too many white men. Here in today's society, you hear a lot about racism. So a black man on trial might think that a jury with too many white men on it might have some prejudice or might have already burned into their brain that the black man is guilty, and there's no changing their mind to that. So that's where it comes from, that it's not a fair trial with that jury. So confrontation of adverse witnesses. This states that any witnesses that are present at the hearing, the defendant has the right to be in the courtroom. And this is basically the defendant has the right to be in the courtroom to hear any testimonies given against him. He has the right to question the witnesses and make any statements that he feels necessary to those witnesses. Bring witnesses to your own trial is the next key point. So in a non-formal way, to put this, basically the defendant has the right to bring any witnesses to their trial to discuss where the defendant, where the crime occurred or what they were doing when the crime occurred. Basically the witnesses are there to talk the defendant up a little bit. So assistance of counsel. This is what you hear in your Miranda rights when those are being read. You have the right to remain silent. You have the right to an attorney. If you cannot afford one will be appointed to you. And that's exactly what this means. If you cannot afford an attorney, the court has to present you with an attorney. And so now for the Eighth Amendment, this covers bails, fines, and cruel and unusual punishment. These are the three key points in this one. When it comes to the Eighth Amendment, starting with bail, the bail clause states that the court may not put an excessive amount of bail up for a defendant to post. It keeps within a reasonable amount, so the defendant's not trying to pay something they can't afford to post bail. Kind of the same way with the fines clause. It's imposed by a court or a court judge. It may not be overturned on an appeal unless the court judge has abused his or her power in setting fines that are just not relevant to the crime that was committed. And lastly, for cruel and unusual punishment, this restricts the severity of punishment that state and federal governments may impose. So this means, like, if a person's arrested for possession of marijuana, they can't be sentenced to life in prison. Well, depending on how much they were arrested for. But if it's not intent to sell, it would be you can't put them in life in prison or sentence them to death, because that is cruel and unusual punishment, and the punishment does not fit the crime. And that is what this last part of this clause is stating. That is all I have. Thank you for listening.